Hey everyone, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. For my last two videos, I've been getting a lot of comments on my guitar tone. People saying that they liked it, they're wondering what my effect chain was or my recording chain was. And so today what I wanted to do was focus on that. Later I'll do a review of the actual amp head that I got a while ago. That's making the biggest difference for me. But today I want to talk about the entire chain that I use to record my guitar parts. And real quick, it's such a nice thing to get compliments on my guitar tone because for most of my life, for over 30 years now, I've always had not the best tones. I mean, my very first amp wasn't even a guitar amp. I talk about this a lot, but it was a PA system. So it's this gigantic 4x12 cabinet with this PA head. And I actually had to cut holes in the speaker to get any distortion back in the day. Eventually I got Boss pedals and it sounded a little bit better, but it wasn't until I got my next amp that my tone got a little bit better. It was what I use now actually for a cabinet. It was a 1960s vintage 4x12 Marshall cabinet, the slant cabinet, and it's actually the same type of cabinet I use today, but it was a different one. I had since sold it and then I bought a new one because I liked it so much. The problem was back in the day, all I used for a head was a Digitech Valve Effects. It looked cool because it was this mirror chrome looking rack unit, but the sounds coming out of it were pretty thin. Then I ended up getting a Marshall JCM 2000. I recall one gig, my friend who was a recording expert, he tried to dial in the JCM 2000 head to make it sound like a JCM 800, and he just couldn't do it. He's like, dude, I don't know what's wrong with this amp head, but it just has this weird tinniness to it. So even though back then I thought I bought the best amp possible, a Marshall JCM 2000, it still came up short. So recently for live streams, I've been using an Engl plugin. And I thought it sounded so good just as a plugin. I thought, man, what does the actual head sound like? So I splurged on it. I ended up getting it a year ago now, I believe. And it's the best head I've ever used for the rock tones and the metal tones that I need. And so today what I'm going to do is show you how I record my amp setup. Like I said, I'm going to actually do a deep dive in just the head coming up, maybe in the next couple of weeks. But today I want to talk about the recording chain. So anybody who's out there who's trying to record their guitars with a real amp can get an idea of what I'm doing. So the head, like I said, is an Engl, but it's the Retro 100 head. And it's all tube. It's got some cool lights on the inside. I don't really care about that too much, but it sounds huge. I usually use the red channel, so it's more of like the lead channel. And it always seems to have enough gain to get the job done for me. I run that through that Marshall 4x12 1960s vintage cab, and I mic it with two different microphones. I use an SM57 for one of the speakers, and the other one I use a fathead ribbon mic, and that made a big difference from just using the one microphone before. Using two and blending them together has really helped my sound. The ribbon mic gives it more full-bodied sound on the bottom end of the spectrum, of the frequency spectrum, and then the 57 covers all the rest of it. So it's a nice full sound. And then I run those microphones into my mic pre, which is a Neve 1073 OPX that my friend recommended I get. And I want to thank him every day for that because it's one of the best things I've ever used. There's 8 channels. Today I'm only using 2 for the guitar microphones, but I actually record my entire drum set through this thing. So 8 channels, it's plenty for what I need it for, and it always sounds great. That goes into my interface, which is the Universal Audio Apollo X16. So that can handle 16 ins, and it's a real helpful thing for me because I always need more than 8. I used to only have 8, so now I have 16, so I'm set. That goes into Pro Tools, which is my main DAW, and from there I don't do very much to it actually. I put it on 2 tracks, and what I like to do is add SSL plugins, and it's just the strip, SSL strip channel or whatever it's called. And then I bump up a little high end sometimes. It depends on the guitar that I'm using and the settings that I have. Sometimes I actually cut the high end a little bit. I use a little bit of compression, not too much because when I'm using distortion, I don't need to over compress that. If it's clean sound, I might use a little bit more, but usually not with distortion. What I'll do is I'll play now just through that setup. When I did my Megadeth video, I didn't do the riff for Symphony of Destruction. I picked 12 other riffs, but a lot of people were like, where's Symphony? So I'm going to use that riff today just to kind of demonstrate the sound of my recording chain here. So that's with the 2 microphones blended together, and I panned it right down the middle so you can hear what it sounds like with just one take. Okay, now what I'll do is I will record 2 takes, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pan the 2 microphones to one side, record over the top of that, overdub basically, another guitar track doing the same thing, move it to the other side, and I'll show you how I do the split effect so that you get a huge sound using a total of 4 tracks, 2 performances to make those 4 tracks. I almost forgot to tell you that when I'm mixing down, we'll get more into this later when I talk about entire mix down processes, but I do add a master channel, and then from there I add some more mastering plugins. So a little bit more compression. I add a Manley EQ, and there's actually a limiter on there as well. So that affects the overall guitar tones too, but minimal processing in the actual channel itself. I really try hard to get a good tone just coming out of the speaker right away without any plugins or any type of mix down trickery. So that's always the first thing, you know, try to get the best tone obviously first and then work from there. So because most people were referring to my distorted tones, we'll just leave this video with the distortion settings. Someday I'll do clean sound as well. Maybe I'll use my Fender Deluxe Reverb, 1979 Deluxe Reverb for that. But today, hopefully that gives you a good idea of how I record my distorted guitars. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll get to them hopefully soon. Okay guys, thank you.